Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old Fourth Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
Hello. It's as if, I saw somebody on Twitter say this, it's as if we're in the racist advent calendar season. Every day something new racist pops up, and we will get to what was said last night on CNN's airwaves with Abby Phillip trying to maintain some order and civility, and it went off the rails really fast. But I would like to first go back to the Madison Square Garden rally. We all know about the floating pile of garbage, the Puerto Rican slur. Comedian Tony Hinchcliffe of Kill Tony fame with this jaw-dropping statement. And actually not even the only jaw-dropping statement he made, just the one that's made the most headlines.
You know, there's a lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Okay, all right.
See, he knew the joke didn't land. And while he, in some sort of correlation with what went down last night on CNN, sort of backtracked and was a bit, it sounds as if apologetic, but of course, you know, once folks leave the dais or leave the TV show, they hop back on the Twitter X social platform and they get indignant. So, and honestly, the other thing he said that I thought was super racist, but isn't getting nearly as much smoke, and honestly should get as much, if not more, is when Tony Hinchcliffe said this.
I welcome migrants to the United States of America with open arms. And by open arms, I mean like this.
Waving them away. No. Go back.
It's wild. And these Latinos, they love making babies,
Here
too.
it is.
Just know that.
Yeah.
They do. They do. There's no pulling out.
Wow.
They don't do that. They come inside, just like they did to our country.
Wow. Yeah, that's a funny stuff there, buddy. And no, it's not. But I can't tell you how many times I saw folks, right-wing folks that I know on social media, Facebook, Twitter X, they were, well, if you're offended by that, obviously you don't understand the whole Kill Tony vibe. Have you not watched Kill Tony? No, I haven't. It doesn't matter. You know, you didn't watch Kathy Griffin's Life on the D-List TV show to get offended by her holding up an obvious Halloween mask with ketchup dripping off of it either. But talk to me about how thin-skinned I am. Swift condemnation from left, right, center. On The View yesterday, Sonny Hostin had a few choice words.
This Puerto Rican has something to say about the island that I love, where my family is from. Puerto Rico is trash. We are Americans, Donald Trump. Americans. We voluntarily serve disproportionately high in the military while you have bone spurs. And we vote. Pennsylvania is home to almost 500,000 Puerto Ricans.
Right.
North Carolina, 115,000. Georgia, 100,000.
Right.
Arizona, 64,000. Wisconsin, 61,000. Michigan, 43,000. Nevada, 27,000. We vote Donald Trump. Trash. And by the way, Jennifer Lopez, Ricky Martin, Bad Bunny, Luis Fonsi, and Mark Anthony have over 345 million followers on Instagram. I think you only have 26 million, since you care so much about size. And we don't like what was said about Puerto Rico. And we know how to take the trash out, Donald Trump. Trash that has been collecting since 2016.
Right.
And that's you, Donald Trump. And finally, my fellow Puerto Ricans, Trash Collection Day is November 5th, 2024. Don't forget it. You know?
Okay, but it wasn't just Sonny. Let's go to the right. Enter Megyn Kelly.
Last night, look, I want to tell you something about the Garden before we bring in our guests. I watched all of Trump's remarks, start to finish, and he did a great job. He made great points. He started with exactly the right question. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And he went on from there. Just nailed it. All of his points. On message, entertaining, great. Trump was not well served by those around him last night. It wasn't a Nazi rally. All that's nonsense. But I'm telling you, even for me, and I voted for Donald Trump last week, it was too brotastic. Okay? It was. You're trying to win an election in which you're hemorrhaging female voters.
She's right.
Maybe when you present in front of hundreds, thousands at least, at Madison Square Garden, you clean up the bro talk just a little so you don't alienate women in the middle of America who are already on the fence about Republicans. Do they have no women advising their campaign? Is there no actual woman sitting behind the scenes, coming up with the guest lineup and saying, let's just have a word with the guys who are going to be speaking about this isn't the bar. This isn't their living room. This is a campaign. This is politics. We're trying to get him elected. We don't need to rally the base or guys anymore. And it's not helpful, even if we do want to rally the base or guys, to go full off-color insults to different racial groups and so on. I get it. Trust me, nothing that was said offended me. I'm almost unoffendable. But I understand how this plays, especially with women. Yep. And it was an effed up choice. They took what was an amazing celebration of Trump, exciting and well-attended and hugely enthusiastic, and gave themselves a big black eye. This isn't about the insane media, which did, of course, what the insane media is going to do. This is about them giving the insane media all these headlines that undermined the main man, Donald Trump, who did exactly what he should have last night. You effed up. Hopefully you'll do better in the closing week of the campaign.
Well, Vice Presidential nominee J.D. Vance didn't get the memo.
You know, fired up. It was a celebration of America. You had a lot of fun at that rally. Sure, and you know what? Thank you. And you know what Kamala Harris and her team woke up this morning and decided to compare it to? They decided to compare us to literal Nazis for gathering in Madison Square Garden and celebrating the United States of America.
No, I think it had a lot to do with. I mean, obviously there was, the query, the question, why would Trump go to a non-swing state to do a rally in Madison Square Garden where he doesn't stand an electoral chance to pick up electoral votes in that state, other than to pay homage to an event that once was held there. I mean, you heard Megyn Kelly talking about, okay, maybe this was a play for your base. I said that yesterday. That's exactly what this was, a play to the Proud Boy base. And while the Trump campaign wanted to distance itself from the Tony Hinchcliffe comments, it's everyone's understanding. I mean, we're seeing tweets left and right. The campaign actually knew what most of the speakers were going to be saying. In fact, they knew what all of the speakers were going to be saying because they reviewed In fact, Tony Hinchcliffe, there's reporting out there that he was going to drop the C word when mentioning Kamala Harris, and the Trump campaign put the kibosh on that. I can't believe they did that, but they put the kibosh on that. But where would Tony Hinchcliffe get such rhetoric about, trashing the country anyway?
There's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now.
Where would he get that?
I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Where does he
We're
get
the
inspired?
garbage can for the world. We're a garbage can. We're like a garbage can, and they dump their criminals, their people with tremendous mental problems from insane asylums, from mental institutions. They're drug dealers. They're gang members.
They're Einstein visa hotties. They're socially awkward trust fund babies from South Africa whose family made a ton of money off the backs of the impoverished, who is on the spectrum himself. If we're going to talk about mental, challenges, we're not going to talk about those. I was sitting there watching the Madison Square Garden antics, and one of the speakers says that America is for Americans, and then they pan to Melania and Elon. Well, that's awkward. By the way, last night, Donald brought the tour. He brought the road show to Midtown Atlanta, Georgia Tech's pavilion. Seats about 10,000 or so, and I want to say about 6,900 folks showed up. A lot of empty seats, especially in the upper deck. And about halfway through, folks were leaving his speech. But here are some of the highlights. I don't know why he decided to. It feels like a thinly veiled threat at Michelle Obama. Big mistake. What's that about?
Michelle Obama. She was. Ooh. I always tried to be so nice and respectful.
Right.
She opened up a little bit of a box. She opened up a little bit of something. Oh, she was nasty. Ooh. Shouldn't be that way. That was a big mistake that she made.
And why? Why was that a big mistake that she made? I'm trying to understand. What does that mean? A mistake for her? What? Explain that to me. But you know what? Maybe it's not my place to speak up for her. Maybe her husband will. Her husband actually did weigh in on the Madison Square Garden antics while on the campaign trail.
So the man holds this big rally at Madison Square Garden. And the warm-up speakers were saying the most, we're trotting out and peddling the most racist, sexist, bigoted stereotypes. One guy called Puerto Rico, quote, an island of garbage. Now, these are fellow citizens he's talking about. Mm-hmm. Here in Philadelphia, they are your neighbors. They are your friends. They are your co-workers.
Right.
Their kids go to school with your kids. These are Americans. They're people. And that is the reason why this election should not be close. It should be clear. Here's a good rule. If somebody does not respect you, if somebody does not see you as fellow citizens with equal claims to opportunity, to the pursuit of happiness, to the American dream, you should not vote for them.
You won't get an argument from me on that. Maybe it's time to actually, maybe now is the time to bring up Puerto Rican statehood. Oh my gosh, what a wedge issue that would be. Talk about an October surprise. But hang tight, racist gonna racist some more on CNN last night. We'll cover that when The Ron Show returns. The Ron Show is on all the major podcast platforms. I even learned we were on Pandora. I don't know how I did that when I did that, but I did that. Or we did that. We did that. Yeah. I had people help me set this up. Follow The Ron Show on your preferred podcast platform. Or, of course, you can do as you're doing now, which is either listening weekdays on America One Radio, 9 to 10 a.m., 5 to 6 p.m., or 11 p.m. to midnight on Progressive Voices via TuneIn. That's great. Hey, however you're doing it. Congratulations. And thank you, more importantly. Maya Angelou famously said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Like most Americans, I'd never heard of Ryan Girdusky. Doing a little bio background on him, I still have no idea why this guy was on CNN with Abby Phillip last night. I really don't. I don't see a whole lot that tells me, oh, this is someone that they really should have reached out to. I mean, he'd worked on some political campaigns, so have I. I'm not going on CNN with Abby Phillip. I mean, I'd be happy to. It'd be amazing. Lee McGowan from Politics Girl, she's on there all the time. I would put me on that panel. That would be amazing. Anyway. And then, she's got the annoying conservative guy that's always on there. Oh, please let me have Adam. Anyway, Ryan Girdusky had worked for Michael Bloomberg's campaign. What? Bob Turner for Congress. He's part of the Liberty for All Super PAC. A couple of city council races. I mean, I just don't. What is it that made him so special that he deserved to be on CNN? Well, that it turns out. Oh, he's written some books. Okay. That, it turns out, was a huge mistake. Huge. In a tense back and forth with Mehdi Hasan, this was said.
If you don't want to be called Nazis, stop doing it.
You're called an anti-Semite more than anyone else's table.
Yeah.
And people will sit there and, no, by me. I never called you an anti-Semite. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying
I'm a supporter of the Palestinians, so I'm used to it.
Yeah, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. The thing is that
you just say I should die.
You should not.
No,
did you just say I should be killed?
No, I did not say that. I said, no, I did not say that.
Hold on.
Did your guest just say I should be killed on live TV?
I said I hope
Guys,
you.
let me just stop.
You said you hope my beeper doesn't go off.
Because you said I'm a big supporter
of the Palestinians.
Of Hamas.
Guys, let me
I said
stop.
Palestinians.
Are you a supporter
Am I
of
what?
Hamas?
No, of course I'm not.
Palestinians are not.
I apologize.
Are you a racist, violent person inciting violence against
Ryan,
me?
that's disgusting. That is completely.
Then I apologize.
That
Good
is
job, CNN.
completely
Let's have first block
out
say the
of
Muslim
pocket.
guy should be blown
I
up
apologize.
on
Then I
TV.
apologize.
Don't say then I
Wow.
apologize. You
Yeah.
literally.
I thought he said Hamas. I
You didn't think I said Hamas.
Yes,
I said
did.
I'm supportive of
Yes, I did.
Palestinian
Yes, I
rights.
did.
Why? Because when you hear
What's funny
Palestinian,
is
you
Rudy
hear Hamas.
Giuliani said this
No,
yesterday,
because-
so you're a
Yep.
great guest to
Listen.
be here
Yeah.
to defend Rudy Giuliani.
Give me
for
one
racism.
second.
Well, there you go.
Give me one second.
today, and so at this point,
This is what we're in
I
now.
can't
This
do
is America in
Here's
2024.
what I will say.
Forget the
Here's what
racism.
That's right.
It's I should
That's
die.
right.
I didn't say that. You
You
should
said,
die.
what does beeper mean? Don't give me your
I
fake
did not say
ignorance.
you should
Guys,
die.
Why did you say
guys,
with my
give me-
beeper
give me
go
a-
off?
What did you mean?
What did you mean by the beeper?
So what did you mean?
What did you mean by the beeper?
No,
No, you didn't. You said, I hope your beeper doesn't go off.
Ryan, stop talking.
At least have the guts
Yeah,
to
yes,
support
Ryan.
your racist
Ryan,
comment.
stop talking.
Let her bring it back. This is why yesterday's rally was disgusting.
Don't call us Nazis, but I'm going to threaten the brown guy as a
This is
terrorist
why.
and kill him.
Because I didn't ever say Donald Trump was Hitler. But do you know who stood on a stage yesterday and said, I want to come to the Nazi rally? I don't have to make up words and call you something. You're saying it for yourself. And what you just said
Kamala
right
Harris
here,
is a pimp
apologize,
handler.
but I will tell you, I don't accept that apology, and you didn't even
That's
say it to
fine.
me.
I didn't say it
that
to
was
you.
disgusting. But I can be offended when you don't even say it to me. I'm not Puerto Rican, but I was offended by what he said yesterday. And I'm offended that the former president and potentially future president would allow it and go for 12 hours and not say, I don't care. Because you know what? When Kamala Harris put out statements about switching up opinions, it wasn't good enough for Republicans.
Why are you looking at me?
I love how the other conservative male on the panel is like, oh, no. I didn't say anything about beepers. Don't come for me, please. Ashley Allison was hot, and she deservedly so. Ryan Girdusky stepped in it. And what I love is how, like, immediately went to then I apologize. First of all, he fell into the Palestinian, pro-Palestinian, you must be Hamas trap with the knee-jerk beeper swipe, and then tried to clarify with Mehdi Hassan, well, if you're not pro-Hamas, then I apologize. That's not an apology. But then wants to get all emboldened when he goes on the Twitter X platform after being booted from CNN by tweeting, you can stay on CNN if you falsely call every Republican a Nazi, which, by the way, was not happening, and have taken money from Qatar-funded media. Oh, by the way, he was asked about that like a month ago from a New York Post columnist and succinctly answered to that.
Elon accused you of being in the pay of Qatar earlier. You took objection to that. I'd like you to be able to dispel that you're taking any money from Qatar by confirming that you're not taking money for Zateo for Qatar. Is Qatar funding Zateo? Yes or no?
It's a great question, John, because you work as a media correspondent for the New York Post. No, I'm not. I'm answering your question. Patience. We waited for you. You're a media columnist for the New York Post, were you not?
I'm a political reporter for the New York
You were at one time a media columnist. You should read the Washington Post interview that I did literally when Zateo was founded. And Jeremy Barr, an excellent reporter, slightly better one than you, he asked me that question. And I said, no, we haven't taken any money from foreign governments or foreign citizens. Every investor in Zateo is an American citizen, has nothing to do with Qatar. So nice try. Better luck next time.
Okay, so back to Zardesky and his tweet, which, again, all somewhat backhanded apologetic while live on the air, but off the air, gets on the Twitter X platform and continues tweeting. Apparently, you can't go on CNN if you make a joke. I'm glad America gets to see what CNN stands for. Well, first of all, CNN isn't Comedy Central, and it was a joke in poor taste. First of all, I don't think it was a joke. It didn't come off as whatever. Abby Phillips was there to clean it up afterwards when they came back from a break to usher Ryan off the set.
We're back here, and before we get started, I want to just address what happened in the last segment. And first, I want to apologize to Mehdi Hassan for what was said at this table. It was completely unacceptable. When we get this discussion started, you'll see that Ryan is not at the table. There is a line that was crossed there, and it's not acceptable to me. It's not acceptable to us at this network. We want discussion. We want people who disagree with each other to talk to each other. But when you cross the line of a complete lack of civility, that is not going to happen here on this show. It's a heated time. We're in the middle of a political season. We are 8 days from a presidential election. But we can have conversations about what is happening in this country without resorting to the lowest of the lowest kind of discourse. Want to address that, and I want to apologize to the viewers at home because we want to be able to hear each other, we want to be able to talk to each other, and we plan to do that in this next segment.
So then they went on. Again, as she mentioned, middle of a political cycle. And for example, the Arab American vote is an important vote, especially in a swing state like Michigan, where a lot of folks who are Arab Americans are trying to decide, do we vote left, do we vote right? It's so hard for me. I say this to my LGBTQIA plus, brethren, especially the conservatives. You're like trees for chainsaws. I don't understand how it's even an equivocation. I certainly understand the Gaza situation makes this a very tough decision. In fact, I only have 7 seconds before this break comes to an end. I'm going to let Bernie Sanders make the case when the Ron Show returns on America One Radio, Progressive Voices via TuneIn.
This is the Ron Show on America One Radio.
Trying to find the tweet where I'm coining the phrase. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give credit to whoever coined the phrase. It's like opening another day on the racist advent calendar. I wish I knew who tweeted that. It's hilarious because it seems in the closing days of the 2024 presidential campaign, we have racists just deciding to fly their freak flag for all to see. The Madison Square Garden event was very revealing, as was Ryan Girdusky on CNN last night with his "Hope your beeper doesn't go off" quip at Mehdi Hasan. I make this argument all the time with black conservatives, Hispanic conservatives, gay conservatives. I get it. There is a part of me that wants to also be a limited government fiscal conservative. Would it be nice? Of course, it would be nice to be a limited government. I find that to be something of a point of privilege. If you are at a point where you only need a limited government, you don't need anyone to try and balance the imbalance of being marginalized. If you are in a position where you don't need anyone to deal with climate change, I don't know where you live. I mean, we've learned that how far inland can you go where climate change doesn't affect you? Well, it isn't Asheville, North Carolina. That's not far inland enough. So I don't actually know that anybody can feel privileged, lacking a need for limited government in that realm. But obviously, and we've been a military power for so long now that we are a threat to others who see us as a threat, and so we have to beef up our military because they see us as a threat, and we see them as a threat, and it's the perpetuating, never-ending cycle. Anyway, I'm getting off track. There is a tough choice to be made with the Arab American voter, and we have had on this show a couple, 3 times, a Palestinian American Georgia House Representative, Ruha Roman. I talk with her frequently. I adore her. I think she's fantastic. I think she's great for her constituents. I think she's great for the party. She was bantied about during the Democratic National Convention to perhaps be the lone voice on the dais at that convention to speak to the plight of the Palestinian on behalf of Palestinian Americans. Missed opportunity, huge missed opportunity, and one that I think that the party should have taken her up on. It didn't happen, but I do understand why it's tough to be an Arab American voter and go, you guys haven't capitulated enough with this country's support of Israel. And I have this conversation occasionally. In fact, I have a friend, Iyad. We have this conversation where, he reluctantly voted for Kamala Harris, but also said, he'd like to see, and I believe this too, he'd like to see a change in policy, a change in tone. And I'm kind of hopeful that that's what we will get. It's just that in an election cycle, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If Joe Biden-Harris were to pull funding, all funding, support of Israel, what would the Jewish American vote shape up like? And which is the larger, more influential vote? It is that's electoral reality. So I have been saying, I'm imploring my Arab American voters, my pro-Palestinian voter. You have two choices. If you think Kamala Harris, as part of the Biden-Harris administration, hasn't been strong enough in defending Gaza and the Palestinian people, not Hamas, but the Palestinian people, it's a fair criticism. It is a very fair criticism. 40,000+ Gazans have lost their lives. More than 100,000 have been brutally injured. 2/3 of those who are casualties apparently are children. It's a fair criticism. But it's not at the hands of American military might. It's at the hands of Israeli military might. And we haven't even talked about the West Bank settlements and the gruesomeness taking place there. Netanyahu's a monster. No doubt about it. But Biden and Netanyahu aren't best of friends. Kamala Harris doesn't seem to be a fan of Netanyahu. Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu are buddies. It would get only worse. You would have absolutely no levers to rein in American support whatsoever. But elect and embolden Kamala Harris to president. Oh, and by the way, retake the House, control the Senate still. And then you've got some options. And then I say, if you don't get the satisfaction you seek from that, take to the streets. My God, enough is enough. We're all wanting a ceasefire. We do all want a ceasefire, right? We're ready for a ceasefire. Who is rejecting the ceasefire right now? Benjamin Netanyahu, who, by the way, we don't elect. Bernie Sanders took to social media yesterday to make this very same case.
I understand that there are millions of Americans who disagree with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris on the terrible war in Gaza. I am one of them. While Israel had a right to defend itself against the horrific Hamas terrorist attack of October 7th, which killed 1,200 innocent people and took 250 hostages, it did not have the right to wage an all-out war against the entire Palestinian people. It did not have the right to kill 42,000 Palestinians, 2/3 of whom were children, women, and the elderly, or injure over 100,000 people in Gaza. It did not have the right to destroy Gaza's infrastructure, housing, and healthcare system. It did not have the right to bomb every one of Gaza's 12 universities. It did not have the right to block humanitarian aid, causing massive malnutrition in children and, in fact, starvation. And that is why I am doing everything I can to block U.S. military aid and offensive weapons sales to the right-wing extremist Netanyahu government in Israel. And I know that many of you share those feelings. And some of you are saying, how can I vote for Kamala Harris if she is supporting this terrible war? And that is a very fair question. And let me give you my best answer. And that is that even on this issue, Donald Trump and his right-wing friends are worse.
Yes.
In the Senate, in Congress, the Republicans have worked overtime to block humanitarian aid to the starving children in Gaza.
Yep.
The president and vice president both support getting as much humanitarian aid into Gaza as soon as possible. Trump has said Netanyahu is doing a good job and has said Biden is holding him back. He has suggested that the Gaza Strip would make excellent beachfront property for development. And it is no wonder Netanyahu prefers to have Donald Trump in office.
Obviously.
But even more importantly, and this I promise you, after Kamala wins, we will together do everything that we can to change U.S. policy toward Netanyahu. An immediate ceasefire, the return of all hostages, a surge of massive humanitarian aid, the stopping of settler attacks on the West Bank, and the rebuilding of Gaza for the Palestinian people. And let me be clear, we will have, in my view, a much better chance of changing U.S. policy with Kamala than with Trump, who is extremely close to Netanyahu and sees him as a like-minded, right-wing extremist ally. But let me also say this, and I deal with this every single day as a U.S. Senator. As important as Gaza is, and as strongly as many of us feel about this issue, it is not the only issue at stake in this election. If Trump wins, women in this country will suffer an enormous setback and lose the ability to control their own bodies. That is not acceptable. If Trump wins, to be honest with you, the struggle against climate change is over. While virtually every scientist who has studied the issue understands that climate change is real and an existential threat to our country and the world, Trump believes it is a hoax. And if the United States, the largest economy in the world, stops transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel, every other country, China, Europe, all over the world, they will do exactly the same thing. And God only knows the kind of planet we will leave to our kids and future generations. If Trump wins at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, he will demand even more tax breaks for the very richest people in our country while cutting back on programs that working families desperately need. The rich will only get richer, while the minimum wage will remain at $7.25 an hour, and millions of our fellow workers will continue to earn starvation wages. Did you all see the recent Trump rally at Madison Square Garden? Well, I did.
Back at that.
And what I can tell you is that as a nation, as all of you know, we have struggled for years against impossible odds to try to overcome all forms of bigotry, whether it is racism, whether it's sexism, whether it's homophobia, whether it's xenophobia, you name it. We have tried to fight against bigotry. But that is exactly what we saw on display at that unbelievable Trump rally. It was not a question of speakers getting up there disagreeing with Kamala Harris on the issues. That wasn't the issue at all. They were attacking her simply because she was a woman and a woman of color. Extreme, vulgar sexism and racism. Is that really the kind of America that we can allow? So let me conclude by saying this. This is the most consequential election in our lifetimes. Many of you have differences of opinion with Kamala Harris on Gaza. So do I. But we cannot sit this election out. Trump has got to be defeated. Let's do everything we can in the next week to make sure that Kamala Harris is our next president. Thank you very much.
That is the guy I voted for in the 2016 Democratic presidential primary. A fellow by the name of Bernard Sanders. Pretty nice guy. I'm going to give over the rest of my show to an NBA basketball coach. It'll all make sense when the Ron Show returns. Stand by. All right, final 12, 13 minutes or so of today's Ron Show. Thank you for listening. Replays 5 to 6 p.m. on America One Radio, 11 p.m. to midnight at Progressive Voices, and we're on all the major podcast platforms as well. Greg Popovich has won a lot of NBA titles. His job is secure with the San Antonio Spurs, even though he's in a deeply red state, and I don't know why people ask him about politics, but they do, and he has great answers. He's such a profound guy, actually, and someone, apparently an international reporter, asked him about the American political circumstance a few days ago, and Greg Popovich did not disappoint.
Just one question about the U.S. election. What do you think about that? And do you think it's important for the future and the democracy of the USA?
Probably. You want me to speak for an hour? Come on. And we all have hundreds of thoughts about the election. Everybody does. And it's almost become trite. Everybody has their own talking points and all that. I try to narrow it down sometimes and think about, we all know that, one candidate did this and that and the other. None of it very good as far as being a criminal and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But we all know what he does. And so I try to figure out, exactly why do people vote for him? What do they exactly think he's going to do for them?
Same, dude.
I was just watching his rally in Pennsylvania, and all the college kids were behind him with red hats and that sort of thing. And I just wonder if they know that he, had to pay money because of his rent practices in New York, that he was a racist in that sense. He had to pay money because of Trump University being a fraud. He lost all kinds of money with casinos back east. There's Trump steaks. I mean, you could go on and on. I mean, I don't know if they, so I say, what does he say or do that they want to vote for him? They must think he's a strong guy, or this is the biggest whiner that ever walked the face of the earth. I mean, he's like the poorest example of a fifth grade bully I've ever seen. I mean, I just, would you want your kids to act like he does? No. Would you want your kids to make the excuses he does? Everybody's come after me, everybody, this, that, and the other. I'm doing this for you, poor me, whine, whine, whine. And you look at it, it's, like the election that he lost. And he continues to lie about it. Of course, all the sycophants around him know that he's full of crap and a liar, but their interests are for themselves anyway. But I look at it, and I look at my grandchildren, and I wonder if my grandchildren are playing in a soccer game or a basketball game, do I want him to be their mentor? Do I want him to be their example of how to act if it doesn't go well? Like everybody in this room, hopefully all of us taught our children, you're not going to win all the time, but when you win, be humble. When you lose, do it with grace. We all do that. He doesn't do that. And so you wonder, all the people who support him, would they want him to teach their kids? So I got to tell my grandchildren that, I guess, if they want to be like Trump, I got to say, hey, no, today you're going to win, because there's no way you can lose. And if you do lose, it was rigged against you. So don't buy it. Don't buy it. You got to figure out who to blame. Blame those referees because they were against you. Blame your teammates because they didn't play well and they should have maybe given you the ball more. But you don't have to accept that. And just keep saying it. And just keep saying it. And to the little kids, what's really good about it? You keep saying it over and over, and all of a sudden your life will be a little bit easier because you'll become delusional. Because you'll actually believe some of the lies you've been telling yourself. And then you don't have to worry about shame and guilt, because when you're delusional, there's no shame, there's no guilt. And life becomes so wonderful. And that's the kind of things I think about when I think he's a pathetic individual, a small man who has to make everybody around him smaller so that he thinks he's going to be bigger. And isn't that the same thing we told all our kids in grade school? That's not how you act. That's not what you do. But there's those college kids behind him cheering. And I want to know why. Do they think he's going to get him a job? There's no policies, but we're going to get after Kamala Harris because somebody says she wasn't specific. She's been so specific compared to him, it's ridiculous. I just heard it again. I got his policies today. It's going to be great. It's going to be the greatest economy ever, just like it was before. People call me all the time and tell me, oh, taxes, we're going to take care of that. It's not a problem. We're going to take care of that. There's nothing there except jibber jabber. And they're students. They're listening to him. I don't understand what's going on in their heads. So he's pathetic. He's small. He's a whiner. We all know that. But you wouldn't have him babysit your kids. You wouldn't hire him if you had a small business. You want that man in your business? Right. There's no way. But you're going to vote for him for president because he's strong? I mean, Kamala Harris whipped his ass in the debate. Just obviously, and he's running ever since. He doesn't want any part of her. Because as she said before, she's eaten many of his type for lunch. As an attorney general, as a prosecutor, he's a small fry compared to some of the people she's gone after. And he knows it. So all he can do is cut people down, and do what he does. We've all seen all that kind of stuff. the ones that you can be even more angry about, because he's sick. He's a damaged man. He grew up the biggest wannabe there ever was in New York, right? We all know that. He wanted to be in the inner circle, but they laughed at him his whole life. Just like Obama made fun of him at that dinner, and he was about to melt. That angered him so bad, it was scary. But he was never accepted. He was treated like a fool, like a clown. And now he's able to just give the finger to the world because of his position now. And that's what he's doing. He's getting back at everybody because he's so small, he's got to go after everybody, just like we all know the generals and Mike Pence and all that. We've all heard that before. But those people around him, you know, the Grahams, the Cruzes, the Hawleys, the Meadows, McCarthy, McConnell, all those guys, all older white men, which so happens to be, they know he's an ass. They said it. I'm not saying that I think they think that. They've told us that ever since, 2015, 16, all that kind of thing. I mean, they've called him a xenophobic, a religious bigot, a racist, unfit for office, on and on and on. Their words. But they're right there with him. Mm-hmm. Do they not know that they have children and grandchildren probably?
Watching.
That are going to lose freedom if this guy is elected? I'm not talking about a policy. I'm talking about the idea of our country. Freedom is what we're all about. And the experiment has been going on for, 250 years? And these people are willing to front for him, knowing full well how full of crap he is, and they have children and grandchildren that will have to live in a world that is going to go downhill if this guy is elected. He doesn't know anything. He's not imagining. He doesn't care. He's not interested. He didn't even want to be president in 16. It was a scam. It was, an investment for him. What are they thinking? Well, we know what they're thinking. They want their power. They want their position. People like Cruz are pathetic because we know that that's why they're there, because they've said things about him. They're real feelings, but they don't care. They think we're all stupid, that we don't remember what they said, that kind of thing. So it's just such a dangerous situation because, the fact that he's damaged and now he's become delusional, you just listen to him, it's embarrassing. And he wanted to get after Joe Biden because he would flub up some words here and there. Now the danger follows the delusion. And our kids and grandkids are going to have to live with what this guy puts out there. So I'm just hoping that people, people who are already sold on him for whatever reason, I can't figure it out. The ones that stay home and don't vote are the ones that worry me.
Yeah.
Because we need everybody to vote. And I hope that they won't stay home, that they'll understand that this guy is a scam artist. He's great at it. I'll give him credit for that. He's the best ever. Best ever. But he makes you want to puke. Can I stop?
How do you really feel?
He went on for another 3 minutes, actually, and it's delicious. I shared that on our Twitter X platform. I'll put that in the show notes. You can link to it as well at ronshowatl.com. However, I don't have 3 additional minutes. I have about 30 additional seconds. So I just want to stop here and thank you for listening to today's Ron Show. You can, again, find it again. We'll replay at 5 to 6 p.m. on America One Radio. If that's when you're listening, then, hey, I'll play it again, 11 p.m. to midnight at Progressive Voices via TuneIn. And if that's not convenient to you, that's fine. It's on all the major podcast platforms. And at some point in time today, I will load that there. Oh, real quick, because I know a lot of folks are checking in on this. Apparently, the latest Georgia early voting data, we are now 1% beyond 2020 numbers. We are pacing ahead of 2020 numbers. 3,058,103 Georgia voters have voted already. Fantastic. And thanks to Ryan Anderson, the fellow who put together GeorgiaVotes.com. So we're all constantly updated on that. I'll include that link in the show notes as well at ronshowatl.com. Back tomorrow, 9 a.m. on America One Radio. Have yourselves a great day.